an empty lot. That's all that's there. And so as they work with the insurance adjuster and try to come to closure on insurance, the post-storm residential property looks like this. The market value of the lot, let's just say it's $7,500. The assessed value, again, using the same calculations. Now the tax rate's $366 because we passed a bond issue in April of 2012. And the residential assessed value then looks like this number. We get $52.16 off of that piece of property because the assessed value dropped as a direct result of the storm, and there's no longer a house on that piece of property. Fast forward, let's look at commercial, same type of scenario. You know, it's a small business, $15,000 lot, 33% fair market value, $366.11. We went to $181.17 is what we collected on that particular lot. Total Joplin schools now in comparison to before, $233.33. And when you look at the revenue impact in each one of those, you can see the difference going from fiscal year 2011 on those two particular properties. We went from collecting $1,721 to $233. Okay, that's just a scenario, fictitious scenario, and just using easy math to help people kind of see the impact of the tornado and the impact on local property tax revenue coming to the district. So as I mentioned, it's a reduction of $1,487.87 on this one commercial property and one residential property in this scenario. So post-storm tax revenue scenario for fiscal year 13. Let's assume this now the super TIF is applicable here. So we're looking at the same residential property. You know, parents had moved in with grandparents, and they finally got settled on their home. They've now rebuilt that home back on the lot that they had once owned, and have built a new house for their family. Market value of the home, we'll just assume it's another $100,000 home, and looks like this. The lot's valued at $7,500. The home's valued at $925. And as we work through this same scenario, tax rate's $366. Now the residential assessed value looks like this. Property tax revenue to the schools, $52.16. Still, because the TIF is attached to it, and all new revenue goes to the super TIF to pay for the $18 million in bonds that were issued by the city of Joplin of $643.25. Okay. So the family is back in their home, and the two children are back in school. Pre-storm, we received $628.90, went to fund their children's education in the way of taxes. Post-storm, with the TIF in place, we're now educating the same two kids, and we received $52.16. The difference between the $52.16 and $628.90 is what's being used to fund the repayment of the city's $18 million bond over the next 13 or 14 years. Using the same scenario, you look at commercial property. And I'll just quickly slip through here because you guys are getting the sense of it. $181.17. We're still receiving the funds off the lot, but now the small business owner is rebuilt and back on that same site and doing business again. That property tax money that was supposed to go to the schools now to fund education in Joplin. Pre-storm we got $1,092. Post-storm we get $181.17. Right now it looks like for the next 14 years, and the difference goes to pay the city's $18 million bond. And you apply that concept to this area. Just want people to put in perspective the challenge we've been struggling with, and how important the $13 million agreement that we had with Wallace Majali that was representing the city of Joplin as it relates to our ability to operate our school district in a secure way that our taxpayers expect us to secure. And I'm going to leave you guys.
Which direction is
This is let me give you back. Let's put it in scope. I apologize. This is Sunset Ridge and 32nd Street, Schifferdecker.
Okay, thank you.
This is Range Line. This is 32nd Street. This is Union Depot. That's all Main Street right here. Okay. I can't remember 5 point some odd square miles if I remember correctly. I can't remember but it was its largest TIF in the state of Missouri, and
so it included property other than what the tornado went through.
Yes, correct. The tornado zone roughly
Right through there.
goes right through here, and So what you'll have, in all the scenarios aren't obviously, homes that were destroyed and then rebuilt. But the challenge in polls illustrates it probably best. It's like, we'll compare the 1717 marketplace, the Academy Sports TIF that's still fresh on everybody's minds. When the city came in and applied that TIF to that particular piece of property, there were still buildings there. We were receiving property taxes on those, and in essence, they said we're going to freeze property taxes at this level that go to the school district, and anything new that comes in on top of that goes to support the development of that area. Okay, so we were initially at this level on those, at what we'd always gotten, always received in that particular TIF. Now you fast forward to 2011, a tornado comes through, and let's say it goes through that same area and was to take out Academy Sports, and that Academy Sports was a part of the TIF zone, which it's not, but if it was, then what that would say is that instead of setting the TIF at this level, our assessed valuation, it starts at empty lot level, and if they rebuild Academy Sports back, and then anything above and beyond the cost of the lot, and whatever the lot in that area is assessed at, is what we'd receive in additional, or would be going directly to the super TIF, and we would receive less than what we had before. So when you look at Main Street, obviously there are a lot of areas over there that weren't damaged, and so in those particular places, if there's an empty lot and something gets built on it, same scenario as what I just shared with you. But let's say the Commerce Bank building, for example, is in that TIF zone. As they assess every other year, and as that assessment climbs, we're capped. But any new assessments on top of what it was originally assessed at would go into to pay off the $18 million bond over the next 14 years. And so that's the concern. And I think that one of the things I want to point out, and one of the questions that I know that you all have, is how did we get in this position? And those of you that were on the board at the time when we were going through that know how painstakingly hard we worked as a school district to work with the city of Joplin and the master developer and others to make this thing come together. And I would argue, and I think I could make a pretty good argument, had we said no, we aren't going to support the super TIF. And let's say hypothetically, because the TIF commission is only an advisory board, even if we'd said no as an advisory board, the city of Joplin could still raise their hand, get enough votes, and say we're doing it anyway. So really that's negligible. But the reality of it is that had we said no, and the community was looking at what they have today in terms of the redevelopment of that area, I think that fingers would be pointing squarely at the school district right now and saying it's because you guys didn't work with us on this TIF that this didn't happen. And so we were put in a real tough position. Worked really hard with the city of Joplin and Wallace Jolly in particular. And I want to leave with a couple quotes. I'd like for you guys to read this. This is a direct quote from David Wallace in emails that went back and forth between, we had questions, he'd give us answers. And just read through that. There's two slides here.
Wallace was an agent of the city?
He was the agent of the city, yes.
And Dr. Huff, at some of those meetings, the chamber was represented and the city was at some of those meetings.
Correct. So there was a lot of concern, obviously. Everybody wanted to see, I don't think anybody argues that we all want to see the community rebuilt. But we've got a situation that we're going to have to deal with as a community and figure out how to move forward. Everybody got that through this paragraph? And that last sentence in the email he sent was underlined for emphasis. So we are where we are. I know the city of Joplin, we have a great working relationship with them. We've been having conversations over the last 6 months. As we've seen, obviously Wallace and Jolly was still in the picture at the time, but we have been working hard with them to figure out how to mitigate, because in year 3, first quarter of 2015, as it mentions up there, the school district was expected to receive, at that time, was $12 million. We negotiated up from that point to $13 million. $12 million, $13 million, basically they're referring to it as a grant from the city of Joplin to offset the operational losses that we were going to incur as a direct result of the TIF. There was also language in there about another $1.4 million payment in about year 5 or 6 of the TIF, and then there were, in addition to that, We had also written in quite a bit of language about how to move forward if this TIF is extremely successful and we see a tremendous amount of growth and the kids are coming and we have kids moving into this attendance zone or into the TIF zone, that we're going to have to educate how we can pay for the bricks and mortar, because our tax base has been detrimentally affected. And we may not have the bonding capacity by that time to be able to build a new school or an addition if we needed to do that. And so there were payments that were going to be set aside based on a formula that was created and agreed upon, that once we got above 250 students above our pre-storm enrollment numbers, that there would be X number of dollars per student per year that would be set aside for any new construction, bricks and mortar, that would take place. The toughest question we asked, and we asked a lot of tough questions. The board asked a lot of tough questions at the time, as they should. And what I would tell you is that that in every scenario that was given to us, we would ask the toughest question is, what if it doesn't work? What is worst case scenario? How does it impact the school district? What if it doesn't work? And there was no presentation provided to the city of Joplin, to the TIF Commission, to this Board of Education, to Paul or I, that would ever brought us to a scenario that's got us in the situation that we're in right now. And we asked those hard questions. And as you all know, there's some really smart people that sat on that commission that looked hard, bankers and investors and others that understand that world. And you know, I wish I could had a crystal ball. I think we all wish we could have a crystal ball, but we don't. And we did what we thought was best at the time. And the end result is we are where we are. So, you know, as far as long-term impact of the district, you know, Paul does a fantastic job with budget. We've overcome an economic disaster and a natural disaster at the same time, and now this is another blip in the radar that we're going to have to address and get creative about how we move forward as a school district and a community, quite frankly. And so it's I think the silver lining around this particular dark cloud is the fact that everybody wants to work together to come up with a solution to the problem. It's once again going to be left to the citizens of Joplin and the leadership of Joplin to figure out how to move forward from here. And I think we will. And so we're going to continue to reach out to the city of Joplin, and hopefully once they get their feet under them, following David Wallace's exit, Wallace Majali's exit from the city of Joplin, we will have an opportunity to get together again and have a conversation about how to move forward from here.
But that statement sounds like we got $12 million up front. That never happened.
That was the year 3. That was the year. That was what we're talking about right now.
That never has happened.
It has not happened. It is not going to happen.
So what kind of an agreement do we have with them? Was it a contract that all parties signed? Was it just a memorandum of understanding?
Yep.
So
And who with? The city? I mean, specifically?
With David Wallace on behalf of the city of Joplin, and it was approved by City Council. City Council developed a TIF guidance around that they approved. So it was done with full support of the City Council, just like the memorandum was entered into with full support of this Board of Education at the recommendation of Paul and I, and all the legal counsel we could muster to get our heads wrapped around this complicated issue.
will you go back one screen, please?
Go ahead.
Okay, Eric, it's up to you now.
I do want to add that the one of our MOU points in our MOU is a basic 4-page agreement, I believe. But
What's the MOU?
Memorandum of Understanding.
Okay.
Which to us is a solid agreement. And as Dr. Huff said, one of the points in there, the last point in there, was we expect the city, in essence, to adopt this agreement as part of the formal TIF redevelopment plan, which, as Dr. Huff said, when they created the redevelopment plan and went through the city process, they adopted that memorandum in total. So that's in the city records, and that was a good thing. Also, we designed the memorandum, the agreement, to if there were excess revenues coming in, because the statutory limit period for these TIFs is 23 years. And of course, the example I give oftentimes is you can have high school graduates graduate, get married, have a child, raise that child, go to our schools, and they could be their child could be graduated before the TIF's over. And so that's a whole generation skip of revenue that a TIF can bring a district. That's the caution we have to have as we go down these paths. But one of the benefits of that agreement was extra dollars that come in, if there are any, go toward the payment of those bonds so that we can shorten, that the discretion to spend those monies elsewhere is tightened down so that so we can shorten the period of time from 23 years to something less. And as Dr. Huff mentioned, as we talked to the city here recently, I think they did mention right now the projected time period is 2027. Is it 14 years?
14 years is what I'm
out.
hearing right now.
So, we're seeing some benefit from that posture we took toward that agreement to at least be shortening the length of time. We still have these issues in front of us, but there were some good parts of that agreement that we stand on today that we're glad we have working for us.
In his email, it makes it sound like you're going to get your 12 million in 2013. I think that's what it said on the previous page. So in the actual MOU, was there any contingency in there that said, but if we don't?
The rationale for the TIF to begin with was that none of that redevelopment would happen. It had to pass the but-for test. But for the TIF, if it wasn't but for the TIF, no redevelopment will occur. And all the numbers that they generated to justify the amount of money they'd be able to borrow, the projects that they were going to be able to do, revolved around this but-for test. And it had to meet the but-for test, and it met the but-for test. Okay. And it obviously, I could argue now, but for the TIF, we'd have be in a better financial position as a school district than we are today. We have, last year, Paul, roughly 440,000, I believe, 460, somewhere in that range, of tax revenue was diverted from the school district to pay towards those $18 million bond. And this year's tax collections is somewhere close to $1 million that is being diverted from the school district that voters approved. And that includes, within that TIF zone, even the bond issue we passed in 2012, that 35-cent increase to the tax levy, that tax is going to pay for the bonds on the super TIF, which had an impact. We had to make some adjustments on our side of the shop because we had a whole loan payment schedule. Before super TIF even became a reality, we had a budget plan and a loan payment schedule that was impacted to a degree too. And so it's created a number of challenges. Us on the front end, even as a successful TIF, has created a number of challenges on the front end for us, which I think just shows how hard we wanted to work with the city to make this happen.
Without being specific, do we have legal options?
I have reached out to our legal counsel that guided us on that process, Bill Moore out of Kansas City, who deals with TIFs on both sides of the TIF issue. And right now, he said our best recourse is to partner with the city and work with the city on how we want to move forward. So that city-school relationship is more important now than it's ever been. And so, I don't know what that looks like. I just got that email about 20 minutes before I walked into our first closed session meeting, and I haven't had a chance to contact Bill Moore to get further information, but that's what I have right now. So we got to continue. I know it's frustrating, but I can tell you the worst thing in the world that can happen is finger pointing to start.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's one of those things that,
Unless it would generate money, and it doesn't. So,
that's the point.
I guess what I was asking is, did they stick a statement in there somewhere that said, but if this doesn't happen, then sorry, you don't get your 12 million?
Doesn't work that way. And the reality of it is they have to, just like we have to, any revenue that we generate that's generated by our debt service levy has to go towards the bonds that we have outstanding. Okay. Similar scenario, any new money they get has to go towards their bond payment first. Okay. Anything above and beyond that then would be eligible for us and other taxing entities to receive to offset the losses that we're incurring as a result. And the bottom line is they're making their payments, and that statutorily has to come first. Right. And so they have those are guaranteed bonds. They have to be paid.
So
Good explanation.
what do you need from us?
I just want you to be aware, we're just like the city, scratching our heads trying to figure out where to go from here, and patience.
But hey, if this
Absolutely.
doesn't work out, then we can't pay you.
And if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. I'll email out this presentation so you guys can have that to review. It's a lot to take in.
Okay. I was thinking like, because they stuck that. We borrowed on that.
that didn't.
I like it better the other way.
Statutorily driven.
Right, okay.
Is it my turn?
Yep.
If the Jet 14 people were put on the TV, the posters and things around the room, the schools have been very kind to us to thank us for being on the school board. And people out.
And I'd like to say too, that this, being a school board member and those people that are running for school board and that have served on the school board, it's the only elected position in the state of Missouri and possibly the country that's, in Missouri anyway, is a volunteer position. I met a gentleman from another state who was a board member in on the East Coast somewhere. North Carolina. Was in North Carolina, and we were sitting there visiting, and two things that shocked him. One, he asked how long I've been here. I said 7 years, and he said that's unusual. That doesn't happen where I'm from. And two, he said, what do board members get paid here? And I said they work for free. And he about fell out of his chair. And you know, you guys are truly volunteers. It's volunteer service, labor of love, and it takes a lot of time and energy to do this work. So on behalf of the community and folks in this room, we thank you for your service to our kids. So that's a nice segue. We got some elementary progress reports coming up. Jennifer, you want to introduce this one?
We are in our second of 3 presentations.
Yes, we sure
And
are.
I could see that they just jumped at the opportunity to come up here to the table.
They're pretty.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Such a difference.
It's Cecil Floyd, thank you. You're welcome.
Um,
Thank you very much, Jefferson.
And I do want to reiterate how much we appreciate you as a board. We thank you for your support and the work that you do, because I know it's tireless, and but it's very important work. And so just thank you to you all, each one of you, for what you do. You know, a few things from the kids and stuff is probably not enough for our thank
Awesome.
yous, but I just wanted to reiterate that again.
It makes it all worthwhile to
Yes.
get something from a child.
Doesn't it,
It
though?
really does.
Does your heart happy?
Makes you want to sign up again.
Tonight, we're going to be hearing from our schools that feed into North Middle School, and I'm excited for you to hear what they have to share with you this evening. I think you'll get to see the great things that are being done, again, falling in line with the focus of our district that you've been hearing, so you'll hear a great deal with regards to that as you listen to their presentations, and so I'm excited for them to showcase the great work that they're doing in their schools. So first, we're going to hear from Gail Hennessy. She's the principal at Cecil Floyd Elementary School, and her vice principal is Kathy McCombs. And so I'm going to turn it over to them and look forward to hearing what they have to say.
Good evening. It's really hard to put a whole school onto paper or into a presentation, so try to just highlight some of our great things that we're doing, as well as some of the things that we're working on and some of our goals. Behind me, I have some staff that showed up tonight to support the presentation, and just a glimmer of the tenor at our school, just supportive and behind each other all the way. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you. Our mission is on the front. The infographic that you see is just, it kind of goes along with my presentation, and then I have some slides as well up front that go into a little bit more detail and some actual data from our last fall and currently. So currently we have about 550 students. We average about a third of our population transition in and out throughout the school year. Very fortunate to have an incredible assistant principal, Kathy, and staff behind me that work very hard to make sure that when the students come in, it's seamless. They come in, they start working, we know where they are, and move forward. We have some special programs at Cecil Floyd: autism, multiply handicapped. Of course, we have our Read 180, System 44, Title I teachers. We have 3 and 4 teachers per grade level. So it's a large school, and with a large staff, it's fun. A big family. So we have our ups and downs, but we all have this goal this year of student success and watching children make progress. So will this work all the way over here? Oh, look at there. Okay. I was waiting for the slide to turn, and I have the power. Currently, our annual performance report from 2014, our achievement was at 81%. Our subgroup was a little bit below, and we're really proud of our attendance at 100%. We monitor that weekly or every other week, and we're hovering right around that 90% of 90 students, 90% of our students, 90% attendance. So we're hovering right around there. So with that large of a building, I'm very proud of the work that our teachers do, contacting families, our counselor, Kathy and I, and the secretaries following up on families and contacting them. Taking some data, our focus has been reading and writing. Last year, we really honed in on the reading, summing up our balanced literacy, direct teaching, interventions, taking assessments monthly to see a little dipstick of where we were each month, and this year comparing January to January. So you see a slight increase. Our goal at the end of this year is to have 60% proficient in reading, and then in writing you see a huge growth from last spring to this fall with the instruction and the diligence of our teachers, a nice growth, and we hope by spring that we'll be at 30% proficient and above. PBIS is Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. We are really implementing about the third year really true implementation at that 100%. The SET is a school-wide evaluation tool that really seeks, tests, or analyzes whether or not our implementation on this positive behavior supports is intact, and we are at 100%. And this, I think we've been that 2 years in a row. It is now just a part of Cecil Floyd. It's not this new program added on, an initiative, a new thing. It's common language, it's common procedures, it's just how we do things. It's looking at data every month to see how our office referrals, what students need more interventions, etc. So I'm very proud of our students and the staff of just taking that on and just being part of school. With our data, this is our data wall in our TLCs, Erica Stagner's office, and 3 times a year, each one of those little squares represents a student. And so when we look at our data from fall to winter, we can see if a student has gone up. For instance, there's some green up there in the blues, which is really exciting, as well as students that are maybe the greens have gone down to the yellow. And so we can take those little squares off the wall, see the child's face, work together as a team, and really target interventions to make sure that that child either moves up 1 or 2 levels and have really strong conversations around that data. And so last year when we put this on the wall, and Erica spent hours, as you can imagine, cutting out those little squares, putting each of the little faces. We didn't have the faces out, so that if we do have guests through the office, we keep confidential, but the teachers, when they can turn that and see that face, it makes it real. So that has been very strong.
Are you moving from the red up to the green?
We want to move the red up to that blue, you bet.
And that's?
You bet. And that was from fall to winter. We just changed.
Kindergarten through 4th?
5th. I couldn't get.
Okay, okay.
I was trying to get up on the top of the chair.
And what does the blue level represent?
The enrichment level, above core. The green is core and the blue is enrichment.
How does that translate to on grade level?
At grade level or above.
So blue is at grade level
And above.
or above.
And the green is at grade level.
And then Gail, the numbers up at the top.
And that's the top number is
the Lexiles.
It's actually the curriculum-based measurement, the words per minute that they're reading. And so in kindergarten, we hope by springtime that they're reading 50, my contacts, 50 words per minute.
The yellow is where they're shooting for.
Actually, it's the green, the 40, the middle, 40, 54,
okay.
107, 128.
Okay.
So
is what we're shooting.
that's using AIMSweb?
AIMSweb, yes.
Okay.
Which is a screener. It's a quick little test, 3-minute test 3 times a year. It correlates pretty high with the expectancy of the MAP test.
So is that AIMSweb all the way across K to 5, or is
K
that
to 5.
AIMSweb's in kindergarten and then something else in another grade level?
We have chosen to stick with AIMSweb K5.
Okay.
Just so we can have apples to apples to apples each year. And so
Okay.
that's our leadership team has decided to do that, as well as the SRI 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Okay.
We just see that it's a quick test, and it's the high correlation, and they can manipulate it, as well as progress monitor with the same test. So the students in the red and the yellow our progress monitored weekly or every other week to see if they're making progress. And so when their interventions are implemented, the red and the yellow, the students scoring the red and yellow are monitored to make sure that they're working.
So Gail, what are you guys using? That's what you're using kindergarten. What are you using like first and second? Which Ames web test?
CBM. Kindergarten, we're actually using
Okay.
letter name and
Okay.
letter sound. And then first through fifth is the RCBM, the
Okay.
reading curriculum-based measurement.
Okay.
And that's testing fluency.
So now when the students, do they come in and do they know they're
They
getting
do not.
advanced? Oh, they
A
don't?
lot of the teachers work with the students individually to show their scores, and they show the progress that they're making, because that data is real, and they can really set those goals with that, and then tell where they want to be and where they are. Do that. Also, great reports to print out for families. When you sit down with a family and you're talking about their reading, you can show several types of data as they're showing this is where they are, this is where we want them to be, and this is what we're doing to get there, and here's all the different types of data we're collecting.
And you're
on.
doing that 3 times during the
Uh-huh.
school year?
3 times a year. Good.
Cool.
Good questions. And so this year, looking at that Joplin WIG, wildly important goals, Cecil Floyd came up with our own important goal this year, and it's really self-regulated questioning during conferences, and those are writing conferences. A teacher meeting with a student, a group of students weekly or every other week, talking about their writing, looking at writing progressions and seeing where they are and moving them up. So I do want to brag a little bit. We started out thinking that maybe we'd get to 20% by the spring, but we beat that in the fall, so we're already bumped up to 30%. So we've already got to change our goal. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah, it was woohoo. Pretty fun. So this is how we're going to get there. We're going to continue conferencing with students. We're going to have these learners being self-regulated, talking about how they're learning, what they're learning. Each week, the staff meet together as grade levels during their PLC time, and they talk about their goals and how they're going to get there, and they set new goals, and that rich conversation about what their students are doing and what they're doing to help their students grow. Within our plan, looking at the writing model, this year we really made sure that, and checked each other, are we really implementing that Joplin writing model with fidelity? And it's been fun to watch the teachers grow with that. Writing across the curriculum, the books that we handed you, all of our students have writing books, so they're not just writing in writing time, they're writing in other times. I'm starting to see it in kindergarten now as well. They're writing about everything. PE, music, art, they're writing. So it's nice. Teacher clarity, we've been talking a lot recently, and that's kind of where we are, talking about those learning intentions and the criteria for those learning intentions, and having teachers very clear, posting those standards, stating out loud what are we going to be learning and why, and really concentrating on that. So I just kind of wanted to show you a couple little pictures of this clarity. Out in the halls for a writing piece is posted. Talking in a 4th grade classroom, the self-regulated questions, where are we, what are we learning, what's your goal? So just reminding that over and over again. And then one of the teachers actually has an entire bulletin board with learning targets and self-regulated learning. So
When you talk about meeting your goals and you've already exceeded some of them, do you have celebrations for that?
we do. We do, definitely.
Are the learning intentions building-wide, district-wide? Did we develop the learning intentions as a district?
That's a
Or are those
great
handed down to us
question.
from the state? Where do we
That's-
get those?
that we look at, I'm learning this as well, and yesterday I walked into a session that Sarah was doing, I was like, well, looky there. Our TLCs have started with guidelines of learning intentions, and I'm going to let the other principals chime in as
And
well.
those came from?
The priority standards.
Okay, state.
Missouri Learning
Okay.
Standards.
Missouri Learning
Okay.
Standards. Our TLCs spent quite a bit of time working together on creating those learning intentions and some success criteria to go along with that. And then as my learning is growing, I'm going to look at Sarah because we're learning this together, that's just a guideline. There may be several learning intentions to meet that priority standard. And the teachers are learning that and wrapping their minds around that to create lessons, units, and assessments to make sure the students are meeting those priority standards.
And priority standards are the Missouri Learning Standards.
Yes, Missouri Learning Standards.
Thanks.
And I call them priority because those are the ones that we prioritize for reporting on.
Right.
But there are important standards and then supporting standards as well. So kind of a hierarchy as you plan your lessons.
Thanks.
Of that.
Good job. Very nice.
Yeah.
Principal clarity.
Principal clarity is another strong thing. And it is, just wrapping your mind around it and when you're trying to teach it. And so what I've learned is the more I talk about it and teach it and work alongside the teachers and we're learning together, learning alongside my colleagues, the more it makes sense and the more it's real, the more it's live. So we really need your support as well. We need you to help share the success and hard work of our Cecil Floyd students and teachers. Our work with Paul Bloomberg and the Core Collaborative has been invaluable to us. We've had teacher leaders go to that, bring it back, and we've been able to talk the same language. Just like with our implementation of PBIS, we're talking the same language, we have the same expectations, K through 5. It has been very invaluable. And then come visit. You know, feel free to stop in, walk through, and meet the students and the teachers. As you can tell, they're dedicated, hardworking, wonderful people. So, and then thank you guys. I appreciate your support always.
Okay, Paul Bloomberg and the Core Collaborative. Is that two
Same
separate
thing.
things, or that's
Same
all
thing.
one
That's
thing?
him.
Slide
That's
down.
him.
Josie and the Pussycats.
Yes.
Paul and the Collaborative. Okay.
I love it. Well, I'll make sure we
Showing
tell
my
it.
age.
Hey, I'm right there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Nicely done.
Very nice job.
Oh, you're
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. I appreciate that greatly. We're going to now hear from Sarah Mwangi.
Good
She's our
job, Ms.
principal.
McCombs.
Oh,
So I was very stressed
Thank
out.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate it really hard. I
I
appreciate it.
am going to brag. She created this infographic that led us on the road because we are on a journey, and she did such a nice job, as well as constantly supporting, and none of this would happen without her and RTLC. Erica.
One question. When you hire your new teachers, are they familiar with some of the terms that Joplin is doing?
They
You know,
are.
those going through Missouri
They are.
Southern and Pitt State, so
They are familiar.
they're coming.
They are familiar.
So they're a little bit prepared. when
We
they
just
get
hired
here.
somebody start in January, and
Right.
she was familiar. She had done some student teaching in another district nearby, but she was familiar with
Good.
Missouri Learning
You
Standards.
do a great
and,
job preparing for
um,
the Southern.
our competency-based grading, et cetera. So she was comfortable.
Good, good. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we're going to hear from Sarah Mwangi. She's the principal at Columbia Elementary.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm just going to take you on our journey. The handout that you have, that is more in representation of our BSIP, our school improvement plan for Columbia. It represents a lot of different factors, but I'll hit on a few data points and then mainly focus on our building WIG that we're addressing. I came on board in 2012, so this is my third year as principal, and when I first came, I was also building a new staff. Several teachers had also left the same time that Mrs. Musser had left from Columbia. So we were really going back to building a positive culture, building a staff, setting expectations. Columbia's always been a good school. How do we move from good to great? How do we get past that hump that we were at? Last year, we really got into talking about high expectations. What did that mean? It's a part of our mission for Columbia that was developed before I had arrived, and it was a piece that I wanted to pull out and really emphasize with our staff. What does this mean to us? And I truly believe that that high expectation is how we were going to get from good to great. We streamlined some assessments that we did within our building, making sure that we were on the same page and we knew what we were using with the assessments that we were giving. This year, we are expecting high expectations, and I'll highlight some good things that we're doing with that, and then using our data to drive our instruction. So that all kind of linked together of where we're at. As far as our strengths, we're growing students, and hopefully you see that with the data that I share. We're moving forward as a new staff. One thing I'm really proud of at Columbia is we break down classroom walls. I have first graders going up to second grade math. I've got second graders working with third graders in their classroom. I have kindergartners, once they're ready to read, we're pushing them into first grade reading groups. So a grade level and a classroom teacher does not define our building. We really, with that high expectation, we try our best to look at our kids as a whole, as a building, not just as a classroom. And we've seen some really great growth with that. We have a special pod model with our 3rd through 5th. The whole purpose when that came about was to build relationships. So we loop our 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I have 2 sets of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and they loop with 3 teachers. So I have 3 teachers who work with them for 3 years on particular subjects. We've seen our last year to take one group all the way through. We started coming on board to Columbia. So what we basically are is we're hitting the ground. We're getting used to this new way that we're getting 92% of my kids are proficient. That means I'm earning points in different ways, and I will tell you a lot of our points is based on growth. We're holding status in a lot of areas, but we're really growing kids, and we're moving forward. DRA, we have decided as a building DRA, we're using K-5. Just like Gail was referring to her Ames discussion with what she's doing, we needed something consistent, something from kindergarten all the way to 5th that we can talk about. So developmental reading assessment, it bases their fluency, the rate in which they read, as well as their comprehension. Our staff felt very comfortable that this was a true representation of a reading level for a child. Last year, we started the year at 53%, and we ended the year at 58%. Our mid-year growth only moved 1%. So last year, the mid-year growth, we were devastated, to be honest. We weren't very excited about it. We ended the year with 58%, so we felt like we were, made some good growth. This year, is probably my most exciting thing to share with you tonight. We started the year at 58%, and as of a couple of weeks ago, we are at 68%. We've doubled our reading growth in a semester compared to what we did in an entire year last year. So our goal is 75% by the end of the year. We just went through our professional development, some of it yesterday. They don't come and ask my people about numbers. They're sick of looking at numbers, especially Libby, our TLC, who worked diligently to put all the data together for us. We're really zoning in. What we're finding is our kids are moving, and we're moving those kids who are close to or they had a little bit of work to do. We've really still got a stagnant group at the very bottom. We're really going to hit running records hard to address that. What that means for non-educators is analyzing in how they read to try to tackle more of the exact problem that we're coming across. Ames is the test that Gail was referring to. First grade did take RCBM this year in the winter. That was the first time we've tested that in the winter. Normally we test that in the spring, and so that has been a change. But our kindergarten, in comparison to where they were last year to where we are this year, both have increased by 19 and 10% respectively.
And are you using letter names and sounds also in kindergarten?
That Ames data is reflective with the district required benchmark assessments. So that would be letter sound for kindergarten for winter, and then that would be RCBM for first and RCBM for second for winter. Writing, I'm going to talk a little more about, but I'll touch base really quick. And I know, I believe Mrs. Dozier shared with you previously the difference between progressions of writing and then just the standards of writing. So with the progressions, it's pretty specific of what we're asking kids to do to help develop a writer, not just say they can write an informative piece of paper. So it's pretty in-depth. We're all learning the language of what we're expecting kids to do, which in turn means our teachers are also learning that. So last year we started the year at 7%. I cried a little bit. I was a little nervous about that. But then as we all start visiting with each other, we're all there in the same boat. We ended the year at 22%. This year we started at 18%, that informative writing when we look at what I'll share with you next, and we're currently at 35% on track to meet our writing goal. Our end of the year goal is 100%, or 50%, sorry.
How can you start lower than where you ended?
From where our kids ended last year, we tested them again at the beginning of the year. So kids move in and out. Yeah, transitions.
So what do you credit?
Need year-round schools.
You're starting to jump into this now, but what do you credit the biggest difference between last year and this year with the percent improvement that you're seeing?
A lot of it is clarity and getting on the same page, holding them accountable and setting expectations of how we're going to tackle this. That's why I put the first slide in there. It was hard, like Gail said, it's hard to summarize all of this. That first slide speaks volumes to kind of the process we've been going through as a staff, because the first year I really didn't dive a lot. I was more trying to figure it out, trying to scope out kind of what we were looking at, and just getting a feel for where we were as a building, especially with a new staff. Last year, we really dove into what is high expectations, what are those, and what do they mean to us? And that's also come from feedback from our parents in our community of pushing our kids, and I've tried to take all those puzzle pieces and put them together. And then utilizing the data is a huge piece. Not just, Libby, our TLC, has a data wall in her office as well. We don't just move kids when we do benchmarks, we move kids all the time. We also have an intervention wall to where these kids that are not progressing and we're doing interventions with, the teachers are coming up and they're tracking that. And they're trying to keep hold of, to we constantly know if we're moving, if we're not in midstream. We've done something going to improve. We just changed stream right now. We've made all, but what was a group that's not, they're hard to get learning walks in our building, and so this data represents when I go visit with kids, when TLC goes in to visit with kids, when teachers go in to visit with kids, whether their own classroom or a peer's classroom. Are our kids able to tell us what their learning intentions and success criteria are for the lessons? I've seen a huge growth. We're 33% overall if you average from when we started this to now, but the most recent data poll that I did with those learning walks were at 75% of the time. When we go in and ask kids, what are you learning about? They're able to tell us. And that's been a huge, huge shift for us. Where are we now? Our building WIG is to increase our informative writing from 18 to 50%, so that's the data that you saw previously. We're doing, similar things as other buildings, stating learning intentions and success criteria, more rigorous mini lessons. One thing that we've realized with those progressions is we've got to up some of our instruction with what we're asking them to do with the writing, because the progressions are the kids need to perform in their writing. Students are setting goals in conferencing. Teachers are providing feedback on that. One thing, a couple of talk teachers playing with that right now, and then we'll move that up into the grades. The other thing we're looking at doing as we enter into next school year especially is aligning our reading and writing. So as we look at our new pacing and we're trying to unit plan, making those more seamless because they're very reciprocal subjects. And then, like I said, taking the data and the student work and putting that together for functioning data teams. This is a video of a kindergarten student. This is as of last week, so this is very fresh. Average student of what you would expect to see in our kindergarten for writing. And I will tell you, she was super embarrassed. She's working on informative, and she was telling facts about bears, so it's legit. You'll see what I'm talking about.
About bears? What kind of writing is that that you're practicing?
Informative.
Informative writing? Awesome. Can you tell me how you're doing?
I'm doing great.
How do you do that?
I know that I'm doing great because I'm putting spaces to where I'm writing and I'm putting periods too.
Oh, how are you spelling all of those words?
I'm stretching them out with my hands.
What do you mean by that?
Like if I was going to spell bears, I would go like ba
And that is how you get your letters? Listening for the sounds? Can you read me what you have on your paper?
Good to know.
Did say
Good to know.
We said that.
In a kindergarten world, informative writing is what they know, and they know that animals do those things.
She did a nice job.
Lastly, how can you help with writing in particular, because that's where we have a huge emphasis of writing at Columbia, understanding the difference between standards and progressions, knowing what we're up against with this new assessment. It's going to be a huge thing that we're going to experience. Stop by and visit, spend time in our classrooms. You're welcome anytime. And encourage community staff and students that success, that's what people think it looks like, and the reality of what success really looks like.
Sarah, teach us the difference between a standard and a progression.
Standard is Missouri Learning Standards.
Okay.
So that basically all levels have narrative, informative, and opinion, and within that they have sub-standards. So generally they have a beginning, middle, and end for a narrative. They can use some transitions. It's pretty basic and broad. The difference when you get into the progressions, which are adopted progressions that we've used, is it gets very specific of what we're asking the kids to do. So an example would be at the 5th grade level in a narrative piece of writing, we're asking kids as they plan out their story and they write their narrative piece, one part, I believe it's under the craft section of that progression, they slow down at a really important part of their story and they elaborate and they go into a lot of detail, and then they speed up their story. So it's very much the writer's craft of how you develop good writing skills, not just can you write a narrative with a beginning, middle, and end, have some information, some transition words. So it's really stepping up the expectation of how to develop a writer, not can you just master the standard. So I would venture to say if we would take our samples and assess them to our standard rubrics, which we also do have to help us with the standards reporting, easily probably 80%.
And the progressions we've developed, we've determined the progressions for our district or for your
Our
individual
progressions
buildings.
are adopted from Lucy Calkins' units of study, and there's a lot of if-thens in there, supports in there. It ties in with the whole Joplin writing model. So that's an important piece when you see writing data and you're seeing these really low percentages to understand we're in the process of teaching these things for the first time, and needle's moving forward. So.
And are the progressions adopted district-wide or by building?
Those are district-wide.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
What's the red hot ticket leader?
The red hot ticket is our PBIS. They earn red hot tickets. Some schools have Soaring Eagle tickets.
Okay.
I like to be pretty simplistic when we think through things. I was not interested in continuing to print out little tickets, so we use literally those little red hot tickets, and that's what we call them. Any crazy things you see me doing, I apologize now. It's probably tied to that. We just hit a couple milestones and did some silly things at Columbia. So.
Cool. Good presentation.
So you've been in the class, you've been out of classroom 3 years, correct?
4.
4, okay. What is the major changes, because we had hit hard on student achievement and how we're not progressing, but through the years I've heard that we're trying to be more individualized and catch each kid where they are, so that affects how some of our numbers read. And you've just come out of a classroom, so now you're having to be on the other side of it, as well as Mr. Engel. So what is the biggest, what's the biggest challenge? From where you were in a classroom to a principal?
The biggest challenge from moving from a teacher to a principal, I'm held responsible for a building now, not just a classroom. I would say one of the big factors is the teacher clarity piece of making sure that we understand the expectations we're being held accountable to. I don't think that's just a Joplin issue. I think that's a nationwide issue for us right now. And so how we address that from just knowing, one benefit that I have had with writing, for example, I was on the writing committee as a teacher, and then as I've progressed through, I did writer's workshop in the classroom. So as a leader, I have that to compare to and help support them and have the knowledge level of writer's workshop to lead it in my position now. to where the writer's workshop hasn't always been there. So some of those type of aspects that I did in the classroom, I'm able to give personal stories, personal examples of situations like that. I've worked with teachers to explain how I did conferencing, how I organized myself, how we utilized literacy support within my building to help conference. It's just kind of a machine, dual conferencing in the classroom, and different experiences like that I can share with them. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you very much. We're now going to turn it over to Jarrett Cook. He's the principal at Jefferson Elementary.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for letting me speak tonight. I just want to thank you guys for just all your support that you've given us throughout the years, as many years I've been here. So, as you all know, I started off I got hired as a middle school assistant principal. I was at the Old South building, and then transferred to the Old New East, and then I applied for the job that I'm at right before the tornado, and then I've been there ever since. But I've got such a great staff in my school, my teachers. I got a great TLC. Heidi's right back here behind it. She's probably embarrassed that I even mentioned her name, but she just does a great job, doing a lot of the things that take a lot of time, and just analyzing data, spending time with teachers, coaching them up. I'll kind of go into more stuff that she's doing and we're both doing in our building. So I'll get started here. Kind of start with the question, where are we? You can I just did a screenshot of, this is right off DESE. You can kind of see our academic achievement, attendance, and our total. And just like Sarah talked about earlier, a lot of these are growth percentages. We've got long ways to go to be where we want to be. But this kind of shows you where we're at as far as English or language arts, mathematics, science, and so forth. Our attendance, 100%. We really concentrated on that last year. With the new MSIP 5, we're held accountable for 90% of our students to have 90% attendance or better. Last year we were able to have like a 91 point something. It was 2 something, I think. So, we've done a good job this year too. We're about the same spot we were last year, a little bit lower, but I don't think we have anything to worry about in our building. We're still shooting for our goal, which is above 92%. So that's kind of where we're at right there, where we are. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of our other data that what we're doing as far as our school buildings doing. Writing has been our main focus, so I'm going to slip onto the other side so we can talk about our WIG. You've seen the district WIG. Our WIG is tied to writing, and we're really looking at the on-demand informative writing progression rubric. And as you can see, we're going to increase from 0% to 52%. That's our goal. And you probably look at that 0%. This is something kind of new at Jefferson. We've always been writing, but really looking at the writing workshop and looking at those progressions that Sarah was talking about, and getting where we want to go. We do informative assessments 3 times a year, or at least our assessment as far as that goes 3 times a year, and we did our first one this fall, and that's kind of where we got the 0%. We were not where we needed to be, and we knew that, and that's why we made that one of our goals. We just recently, before break, took our winter informative assessment, and we made some big gains. We're actually at 32%. Some grade levels are higher. Our kindergarten went really out of the roof. So we got some work on some other grade levels, but definitely not where we want to be, but we made some huge gains, which I think is great. Where we want to be is 52%. We had a lofty goal. I mean, that's over a half. And I think that teachers have kind of taken that to heart and wanted to get there as close as they could. So our biggest focus this year has been the writing piece, and we've done a lot of professional. I mean, which has been great about this. Our goal is we've really focused all our professional development on that. I mean, regression, making sure we understand what the language is on that, because there were some things on there that we had to do some research on and read a little bit of that, because we weren't really familiar with it. There was a lot of things that, there was one that says writing across the pages, and we're like, oh, that's our kids are writing across the pages. That's not what they meant. And, we had to look in there and say, well, that actually means that they're going to be taking the beginning, middle, and end and taking each one of those pages and then combining it. So it was more of some vocabulary that we had to teach our teachers and learn that. So we've not only looked at the informative piece, but the persuasive or the narrative and the opinion piece as well. So that kind of shows you there. How are we going to get there? I know you can't read that, and I hopefully you got one. Okay, you got one of those in front of you, because I've got one of myself. It's got our WIG on there, and it kind of shows you our lead measures and our lag measures. And lag measures are great. Those are what's going to tell us whether we achieve our goal, and that's really the informative assessment that we take for our writing. But we've got a lot of things that we are doing. So if you look at it, it's more our lag measures are more of our outcome goals. That's where we want to be, and our lead measures are more of our production goals. And what that means is these are what we're going to do on a daily basis to get us to where we want to be. So what we do, we're school building is across the curriculum. We've heard that from the grade levels, but we're asking all of our teachers to be writing, whether they teach a specialist class, maybe it's a special ed class that that's a hard thing for them to do. We're asking them to do some of that writing. We also look at teachers able to show the writing learning strategies. This is a great way for some of those specialist classes is writing the learn strategies. Those are little bits of pieces of writing that they can do. Maybe it's an exit ticket of leaving the classroom. They're going to write something about that. Maybe it's a strategy that they did a lesson on. Maybe it's I'm not familiar if you're familiar with 3-2-1, which is basically 3 things I know. Those type of strategies that we're asking the kids to write down. But we've focused on that. We also some things that we're looking for is evidence, and teachers are doing a great job. They're videotaping a lot of their writing conferences that they're doing, and that takes a lot of trust. Be able to videotape themselves and be able to see what they're doing and sharing that with their peers. And we've done a lot of that this year. We're also doing a lot of the observations of self-regulated learning questions, and those are the teachers are doing that's one of our scorecard pieces is every time they do a conference with the kids, they're asking those kids those 3 questions, and we're kind of getting an idea of where those kids are at. We noticed that the first 2 questions are pretty easy. They look at a progression chart and they're able to tell where they're at, and they know where they want to go. But how are we going to get there? That's the question that they have trouble with, and we've found out that sometimes it's easy to tell you how they're going to do it. And he's like, well, I need maybe more capital letters. Or I need to make more spaces in my sentences. Those aren't, but how to get there has been the hard part. What strategies we're going to give those kids. So we've had really good conversations with the students, and the teachers have sometimes come to the stumbling block. How am I going to get them to get where they need to go? I know what they need, but how am I going to get them? So talking with each other, and that's where that PLC time at the at our end of our school, we've used a lot of that to be able to have those conversations with each other and really learn from each other what strategies we can use. Going through here, looks like I'm going to just kind of skip down to the professional development plan, and we've spent a lot of time focusing, like I said, on writing and what we can do there. The self-regulated learning, unit planning, this has been a big one for us because we've been able to, we found out that our unit planning, when we're talking about writing across the curriculum, we're not only also talking about teachers writing or doing lessons from science and social studies, pulling that into reading and just having those opportunities to do that. And we spent all day today with 2 grade levels, kindergarten and 5th grade, working on unit planning, and just the conversations and the thinking that they have to do is we're seeing some growth because a lot of those teachers, not a lot of them, but several teachers have looked at those books. They might have a basal and they just kind of went right through that basal, but they're not really looking at those standards and really tying those standards that we're accountable for and making that happen in our lessons. So Okay, let's go to the next slide. Any questions on the wig or anything like that? I'm gonna, Eric, on this video, I know you're gonna push play for me here in just a second, but I'm gonna ask you to pause it. Can you do that for me at certain spots? Because I'd like to let you talk and kind of do some talking points on that. So let's go ahead and watch some self-regulated learning.
When you look at your stages over here of your writing, where do you think you are? Okay, why do you think you're kind of in between stage 8 and stage 7? Okay, so we got 3. You can make marks. I can make letters. I can copy around me. I can write beginning sounds for words. I can write all the sounds I hear in a word. I can write sentences but write all the sounds I hear. You can write sentences that repeat. What do you think you need to have in your writing to be at stage 8? Spaces. Okay, so we're going to kind of put a star right here, and you know that you're kind of where? In between what 2 stages? 8 and 7. Okay, so my one more.
All right, that was a kindergartner, okay, and you could probably hear the 3 questions that she was asking. And you probably noticed that he did have an outcome that he wanted. He wanted to have more spaces. And what we're, like I said, those strategies of how am I going to get that kid to have more spaces? And we're, as teachers and the staff, we're having those discussions of what strategies are we going to give those kids. You know, maybe it's putting his finger before he writes the next word, and just having those strategies to give to those kids, so eventually that it's, you know, it's an unconscious thing that they're able to provide spaces when they're writing their sentences. But in order, I know I still have strategies when I write. You know, I have to have someone proofread my writing, because that's the stage I'm at, and I'll be honest with you, I've gotten better at writing every year, and I keep on getting better. So, but those strategies are something that I still have to use, because that's what I need, and each kid's different, and each kid needs certain strategies. So that's something that we're continuing to talk. Okay, Eric.
Can you tell me, where are you now? Where are you going, and how are you going to get there?
4th grade, and I'm going to 5th grade level and research more details and preview what
You're right, and we're getting ready to do another informative paper, so that would be a really good time to practice those 2 skills, researching a little bit more and previewing in your introduction. Sound good? All right, nice job, Maya. What are some things that you think as a...
All right, that was a 5th grader, and these conferences that we sit down and actually individually talk with each one of these kids, I mean, it takes time, but we find that they are actually informed of where they're going and where they need to go. And if we find out, I mean, it's so encouraging to know that the kids know where they're at, because they're actually engaged in what they're learning. You know, as you can imagine, when you were in school and the teacher just wrote a number on your paper and gave it to you, it wasn't very engaging. You were just like, you know, or all right, you know, it was one of those 2 reactions, but you didn't really get a lot of formative feedback. And now the kids are engaged in what they're doing, and we're finding a big jump in just the engagement level. So we're really excited about that.
A master writer's writing would look like? It would have what?
periods, no peppers.
Oh, what about that? Is that something that's hard for you?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
done.
So should we put that as a goal?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna write the things that you want as your goal over here. So, no capitals in the middle. Okay, and what's another one?
Make sure to prove it.
Okay, so that's something that you don't always remember.
Yeah.
Okay. So prove capitals at beginning.
Because remember those times when I turned in, you said, prove it.
Right. You do it, you're just forgetting to go back to the circle. Okay, so prove capitals at beginning and periods.
Yep.
Okay, what else do you think that you need to do to be a master writer?
Maybe I should start rereading it
Oh,
more.
I like that. Reread. Love that. Reread to catch. Why do we reread?
Mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you flip over to your writing goals?
We'll keep running this.
Okay. Now, discuss your writing goals for a minute. Anna?
I need to work on neat writing. Name a topic, give 3 or 4 facts, give a closure, and
Okay, and I think now, Anna, we set these goals probably a week ago. Is there, we put check marks here because we felt like Anna was already improving on naming a topic, didn't we, Anna? So Anna's kind of accomplished 2 of these, which is good, isn't it? Okay, good, okay.
where I need to work on writing a good closer and telling intro and factory readers. I need to do spacing and details and handwriting and watch backwards and letters.
Can you tell Anna what letters that she could help you watch for, that if she were editing for you, she would be able to, you want to write them on there?
Yeah.
What letters Anna could help you look for when she's... G and E, good. So Anna, if you were editing with her and she has her goal card, then you'll know you need to help her look for those letters to make sure they're not reversed.
All right, those were just a couple of videos. Those last 2 of those were first graders, and our first grade teachers have really taken off and done something we call data binders. You know, a lot of other schools do it, but they've really developed them so it's really personal for those kids, and they are able to see their growth. They can actually know where they're at and reflect back on that. And they've actually taken another step where they're using other students be able to share their goals with each other and kind of hold each other accountable. So that's not something I asked them to do. That was just something they thought that would, just take that self-regulated learning to that next level. So, but I'm really proud of our teachers. They've really stepped out of their normal thing that they typically do, and really taken ownership over it. So let me go to our next slide here. Strengths. I feel like we have a lot of strengths at Jefferson. Our parent involvement, Bright Futures partners, I really kind of tie those 2 together. Our Bright Futures partners, I know Empire's been with us for, I don't know how many years, over 20 years, before Bright Futures was Bright Futures. But they've always partnered with us. And our parent involvement piece to that is, we love our parents in our building, and they love coming into our building, and we welcome them with open arms. And we have lots of volunteers coming in every day, helping our kids and eating lunch with our kids. So we're very fortunate to have those things going on. A relationship piece, I really look at that as the relationship that our teachers invest in our students and our parents. I mean, my teachers have parents' phone numbers in their cell phone, and they text them after school and let them know how their kids' days have gone. And but they just have that relationship piece with them that an email just doesn't have. So PLC focus. I've talked about that already. Just be able to focus on something that we can just know we're going to be good at, instead of focusing on 15, 20 different things that we're not going to be good at. Standards-based teaching. Talked about our unit planning. We talked. I don't think I talked about our data teams. We meet once a week with our teachers and kind of go over our reading data and looking at a progression of how we're doing. And we focus on different groups of kids and seeing where they're going with our DRA, and what do we need to change this week that we did this last week of our instruction. And really focusing on the teachers teaching and what the kids are learning, and just looking at those small groups. Balanced literacy, looking at that just involves our reading. Instead of going out of the basal and just going from one page to the next, we have a writer's workshop in there, and balanced literacy, looking at all the concepts: comprehension, fluency, phonics, and then PBIS. This is kind of really, we've kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but we kind of started with PBIS a long time ago, and it just kind of teetered. Last year we really made it a focus in our building, and we took a practice set last year. Teachers were too nervous to do a real one, which I don't know what the difference really was. But we did really great on that, and we've made some big gains this year on lot of our goals that we had for PBIS. And service learning, we have several teachers in our building. We've kind of taken Water Gardens kind of as our people that we want to help serve. So we kind of focused on one group, and we do a big art show every year, and we do a lot of different drives for them. And so we kind of become best friends with Water Gardens, and our teachers actually go over there and even on their own. I mean, they'll go over there and serve. Just being a great example, and then we'll do it as a staff too. I feel like those are some of our biggest strengths in our building. So, how can you help? Just continue to support and encourage our hard work, because we are working hard, and all these kids, no kid's the same, but they all want to be at school, and they all want to do their best, and we've really encouraged the hard work. We don't want to capitalize on how smart you are, because I don't know if you've read about Carol Dweck and her mindset, and it's how hard you work and the effort that you put in, and it can make a big difference on where you can go. So come see the wonderful things we're doing there. We'd love for you to come in our classrooms. Shake your hand. If you want to come eat lunch, you don't have to eat lunch with anyone specific, but I eat lunch in the cafeteria every day with kids, and you can come join me. So, all right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Give an example of how we can support you, and you can think about it with the other two librarians.
Okay.
I didn't give you a heads up. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
All right. Thank you, Jared. I appreciate that. We're now going to turn it over to Brett Engel. He's our principal at West Central Elementary.
I'm going to lean this way. First of all, I know there's been a lot of talk the last couple of weeks. I just want to set the record straight. All the PE footballs at West Central are inflated to the proper PSI. If you get any questions about that.
Thanks for clearing that up.
I just wanted to clear that up. Yeah. So at West Central, our theme this year is Dream Big. We came up with that with our parents and our Bright Futures partners this last year. And speaking of things that are out there in the community, we did a community survey last year about reputation of West Central as a whole in the community, and we found there's a lot of misconceptions out there about our school. So I thought I'd take the chance while I've got you here to talk about some certain myths. First one, West Central's in a rough neighborhood and no one wants to attend there. Some of you might have heard that. Well, the fact is that parents are actually choosing to send their students to West Central. That 30 represents the number of incoming permits that we've signed in the last year and a half, where students have either moved out of our sending zone and requested to stay at West Central. And I think that's testament to the fact of our teachers establishing great relationship with the kids and the parents especially. 0 is the number of new outgoing permits that I've signed in the last year and a half. So we've had parents choosing to stay at West Central, and making sure that that's out there. Another myth that you see is West Central doesn't perform as well as other schools on tests. And fact is, last year in the MAP English Language Arts, our 4th grade class was 2nd in the district. So our kids can perform at high levels. That was a celebration that really hard work, and that not just in our 4th grade, but across the district, our numbers reflected that. Another myth you might hear is West Central's old and dirty. I mean, it's an older building, that's all right. But if you haven't been by there, if you haven't seen it in a while, we're getting a new safe room, new offices, new lobby for our main entrance. In fact, they just knocked out the wall into our new hallway. There's a lot of dust going on right now because we're in the middle of it. But the rest of the school is well maintained, clean, and engaging for students. Our custodial staff has done a great job keeping up with that building and handling different things that pop up. But yeah, we're really excited about the new safe room and the new offices. Supposed to be ready here in the next month or so. Where are we now? Just a couple things. Our APR data, our overall percentage points was 57.1. Not exactly where we want to be, but we're moving in the right direction. I put that 93.8 up there because that's our percent of our English language arts the percent of points that we earned there. And that's really been our focus in the last year and a half. Our fall DRA, we do K-5 at our building as well. Our fall DRA was 41% of our kids reading at grade level. We've been doing the DRA K-5 for at least a year and a half now, and we set our goal for 60% for the spring. fall informative writing, we're kind of the same boat Jarrett is in a couple of schools where we're starting basically from ground zero and working our way up. We're seeing some improvement. We did our winter benchmark and seeing some improvement across the board there as well. PBIS right now, we're in our prep year, which means kind of the year before our official year one. We've got some stuff in place already, and we're looking forward to seeing what we'll be adding there. In self-regulation right now, we're really working on our foundational skills, getting our learning intentions and our success criteria, making sure that that's clarified, and the teachers know exactly where we're at and where we're going with that as well. And there's a couple of video clips of a couple of our kids. We asked our, well, you'll hear the question, but asked them more with our visible learning training with Paul Bloomberg. We're collecting some data, and so we asked our kids. It was kind of interesting what they came up with. Go ahead.
Charlie, a fictitious name?
Oh, this is our little Charlie. She's awesome. Hopefully it'll work. Come on, Charlie, you can do it.
Charlie, what does it mean to be a good learner?
You have to listen hard.
Okay. Anything else?
And you have to turn in your papers.
Good.
That's one of them. And then we got another, one of our other first graders, Bailey. We'll get to see her. We were asking, what does it mean to be a good learner? Yeah, I can reenact it. I can do my baby voice. I'll have to get a hair bow, though. I don't know. See if this will work. That'll work.
Bailey, what does it mean to be a good learner?
It means you need to pay attention and be a good listener so you can do really good stuff.
Good.
And you can be a good learner by doing good things for others and doing nice things.
Good.
So yeah, our kids can talk a lot about how their behavior affects their learning, and we'll be doing that again next year, having those same video clips, and we're going to hopefully see the progression of what it means to be a learner in the classroom as opposed to just behavior, which behavior has been a focus at our building quite a bit, but making sure that the kids are being able to dig deeper and talk about how they're self-regulated. Let's see. Forgot I got the clicker. All right, where are we going? First of all, in the APR, we're looking to improve in all areas, not just English language arts, but definitely show some improvement in math and science. Our DRA right now, our spring goal is set for 60% at the end of the year. We just finished our winter DRA this last week, and we are actually at 61% at grade level for the winter. So, of course, the benchmark changes in spring. The ante ups a little bit. So as long as we keep our kids growing the way they're growing, we're going to hit our goal, maybe even exceed it. So I'm looking forward to that. But we were really excited to show that, nearly 20% growth just from fall to winter. Teachers have really been working hard on that. Our writing, our spring goal is 45%. And like I said, we made some gains there already that we're looking forward to seeing those numbers in the spring. PBIS, this year, like I said, is our prep year. Our goal is to be at our Tier 1, fully implemented Tier 1 program at the end of next spring, 2016. And then we want to make sure that our kids can be self-regulated learners in all areas, not just English and language arts. How are we getting there? The handout that you guys have is kind of a partial view of our building WIG and our district WIG at the top. And our teachers, we're really pushing running records, like Sarah's talked about and a couple of the other principals, and also individual writing conferences and making sure that our teachers and kids are having those conversations about where they are, where they're going, how they're going to get there, and teachers are giving us specific plans for each individual student, what they're conferencing with them every week on their reading and their writing. We've got our PD plan and Title I plans that we're using to implement and try to collaborate those together and make sure that our kids are getting the stuff they need. PBIs, like I said, we're doing preset this spring, full set next spring. And then at West Central, I'm kind of like Sarah, I'm kind of a numbers geek. I love looking at data, and I think my teachers probably get sick of that, but we're really, we want to make sure we're pushing and make sure we're doing data-driven decision-making. And then another thing that I've been preaching the last year and a half, we want to make sure that we're reaching every student every day. At West Central, and I'm sure a lot of the other Joplin schools, we have a lot of transition, a lot of transient students that we don't know how long we're going to have them. So I tell my teachers every day, we can't afford to waste time. We've got to make sure that we're hitting every kid every day when they're coming in day one, and making sure that we're helping out with that. So how can you help? Get the word out. We don't want to be the best kept secret in Joplin anymore. We want those numbers to increase. We want to become the school of choice. And one thing that we found out, coming by and seeing us, one thing that we saw in our community surveys, we had quite a few people that they talked about. We had a comment section at the bottom. We asked about, what do you feel is the reputation of West Central community? And they would say, well, until I came and visited, until I came into the building, kind of saw us in action, I didn't realize how awesome of a school it is, or how things are going. So please come by and see us anytime, and help us dream big. We're open to any ideas, any suggestions. We pride ourselves on trying to be outside the box thinkers at West Central, and so any ideas that you can help us turn things around and get us. I think we are heading in the right direction, but any ideas that help us, we'd love to hear from you. So. That's it for us, I think.
I want to address your myths.
Oh, yeah.
I teach classroom management class at Southern, and so we're talking about teacher dispositions, and we're talking about back to that teacher that made a difference to you, and I want you to know that 2 of the students in there cited West Central teachers. Fantastic. And then I emailed that West Central teacher to let her know that from kindergarten to now they're juniors in Missouri Southern, the impression that she made on them, because we all know a great teacher impacts achievement.
That makes it all worthwhile.
Yes, you need to know that.
Well,
your reputation is sterling out there.
Very good.
This is my favorite part of board meetings, honestly. We really get to hear from you, and the enthusiasm you guys have is contagious, and we see that week after week. It's when you talk about the goals you're establishing and the accountability pieces that you're putting in place, that's really what allows us to be successful long term. Because if everything's important, nothing is. And you've really keyed it in, and we can see that in the results when we talk about these and we talk about how improvement is moving in the direction we want. It's a direct result of your guys' leadership. And if I was a teacher, I'd love to work for any of you. And so I appreciate what you're doing for our kids in our district. Thank you guys very much.
Amen. I have a question, and I guess I know that 2011 was the tornado, and we've had a drop in scores for the last 3 years. Can you address that? Because listening to your presentations are wonderful, and we're moving. Can you address why we were there, or where you feel that we are going to be at this point, or?
One big difference is we started on what are now referred to Missouri Learning Standards, officially known as Common Core Standards, before we were ever held accountable for them. So we made that shift when we saw the point that we had to get to. So that's one piece. We knew the GLEs were going away, so we moved away from that of our focus. If you run, and I don't know if any of this information has been shared, but they tried to correlate some of those Common Core type of questions. How are we performing on those? And we're showing good growth with where our focus has been around those standards, is that we're able to see some growth in those standards. The other thing with state assessments in particular, it's a moving target. We're hitting another moving target this year. New assessments, new format. Kids are testing with technology this year, different from what we've ever seen. So I would say the biggest thing, though, is how we have shifted. We have shifted trying to stay one step ahead of the game, and the leadership has done a nice job trying to keep us ahead of that, so we're not blindsided this year when that's how we'll be assessed. And so that work that we've done, the curriculum as well, getting that solid and getting that developed, that teacher clarity Those standards, they're new, they're different. There's some of them that we can tie to GLEs, but there's a lot of new too.
And you guys have all been the same, so that's one that I hear and then I see is consistency. And who was doing the pod? Was that you doing pod? That's cool.
So that teacher clarity piece is huge. It's huge for us. Even as leadership, we're developing our understanding. Libby led us through an activity with reading Informative Standard 5, and what 5th grade is expected to do with that standard is new to us. So we're having to learn the standard, and then in turn we have to teach that standard, and we have to figure out how to hold kids accountable to that. So you're naturally going to see some of that difference. I think what we've tried to do, and you've heard every building talk about what we can keep consistent, so we're keeping DRA consistent in our building. We're keeping something to where we say, this isn't changing. Are we moving? Are we improving with what we're doing? That's not a moving target. And when you look at that token, then we're moving in the right direction.
I think the clarity that we all have right now of where we want to be is clear, and we see the path, and it's not kind of cloudy. Even when we had the GLEs, it seemed like a little cloudy, and everybody was kind of doing their own thing. But with this common language and common priority standards and having good professional conversations around them and kind of norming them and talking about what they look like, we're on the right path. I feel like this is a great path that this district's on.
Hey, Sarah, you mentioned DRA, and I tried to write this down, but I don't think I got it all. So, West Central, you're using DRA K to 5. Do you use Ames at all?
We do Ames for K2, kind of like they
The
do at
same
Columbia.
thing across district.
And then
Okay.
3
And
5
Jefferson,
We
are
use
you-
DRA K through 5,
Okay.
Ames Web K2, and then we have SRI
Okay.
3, 4, 5.
So everybody's using DRA K5?
We do
No.
about K3.
You do DRA K3.
And then for the 5th grade, for the students that are intense and strategic, they do DRA.
Okay.
as well.
And Urban does the
But
same thing.
everybody does Ames K2. That's a district initiative. And Columbia, DRA K5?
Yes.
Okay.
Can anybody speak
Okay.
to triangulation and how you're determining reading levels and skill sets based on the data using triangulation?
When looking at, look, I just jumped right in. We have an understanding,
Yep,
but
your
I
head,
was
yes.
really,
I know,
for the
Sarah's just
record,
gonna
I
talk.
did not talk the longest tonight, so that is new for this group.
So are you making up for it now?
One thing that we have teachers work through is all of these different assessments address different things. Ames has a certain thing they're looking at, DRA has what they're looking at, SRI has things they're looking at. So when he's referring to triangulating data, taking at least 3 data points over a specific area and looking at that. And so one thing that, just an example, we would have a student who looked like they're benchmarking SRI, looked like they were benchmarking on Ames, but they weren't benchmarking on DRA. So it's more of it just informing us where's the issue. And so digging deeper, triangulating that data to figure out what is the core issue that we're dealing with. With reading, throw running records in there, you can look at varying different aspects. It's a game. Education is a game. You're trying to figure out where the issue is and how you're going to fix it. How you're going to move
Who
forward.
gives the assessments? Is it the regular classroom teacher?
Teachers.
District-wide? Okay.
And could you, just for the audience at home, we use a lot of acronyms out there. Could you explain the difference between a GLE and the Missouri Learning Standard?
GLE is grade level expectation. That was the former standards that the state of Missouri used, and Missouri Learning Standards are what we're currently under.
Thank you.
Except in science, and we're still waiting for the state to decide on that, where we're going. So that's a perfect example of the results you'll see. We did not know until August that we were going to follow GLEs and not national standards in the state of Missouri. So that makes it in science. So that makes it difficult to plan and prepare. And so other thing that you can do to support us would be helping us at a higher level, getting things lined out and consistent with legislation.
Okay, so if we, as a board, we've talked about having a dashboard, I think is what it was called, where 3 times a year on the dashboard, anyone could just go and look and see the data points. What data would you guys want us to put on that dashboard? Do you want to put DRA? Do you want to put Ames? And then I've not heard SPI, SMI, and SRI. Is that the other one? And I know we do that, right?
Mhm.
So what would be the data you think as a board for us to have on the dashboard that would really tell us the percent of kids that are scoring grade level or above?
Depends on what you're looking for. I mean, you know, each assessment assesses something different.
Right.
So, I mean, even the.
So what do you guys think we should be looking at?
At West Central, we kind of hung our hats on the DRA for reading,
Okay.
just because it can be used K-5, and also it shows not only their fluency but their comprehension. So we're kind of focusing on that at West Central, and I know the SRI and Ames Web, those are all good assessments as well, but we would definitely want the DRA on there.
And, you know, I look at Ames Web as a quick screener to
Mhm.
see, like a quick test, and then the students that are indicated as a struggle, the DRA then does a little bit more specific. One thing about DRA, there's a little bit more subjectivity. It's not as normed as Ames Web. The DRA and the Learning Records give more of a diagnostic of what's next. So you almost need all those different data points and all those different assessments to say, this is what we need to focus instruction on. And then even after interventions are given, to even diagnose more whether or not those are working or not by progress monitoring weekly or bi-weekly to see if those interventions are working. So a true dashboard would be not difficult, but you'd want different data points on there, different assessments to look at the different layers.
So would it be
So
better
we
to?
did not answer the question.
And
So
that's what our
No, you
struggle
did
is.
answer
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
That's-
so,
It's a
so a better
tough-
measure would be, like, if we, 3 times a year, if we said, how are 5th graders doing in reading and math? Would you be able to say 50% of our 5th graders are at grade level? Because most people just want to know that our Joplin students are at grade level. So I think what the board is looking for is 3 times a year, we start out, we have all the kindergarten, or all the 1st graders in the Joplin School District, and 60% of them, we consider they're at 1st grade level. And then around winter time or whatever, go back and say, you know, there used to be 60% here at grade level, but now they're at 70. Is there a way to do that? Okay.
Are you compiling that a semester anyway?
Yeah, we just did data, we just compiled data this past week. So, you know, there's an assessment schedule for the district. And to clarify for you, when you hear the different assessments, DRA2 is not a district mandated assessment. That's a choice by building. That's why you hear that they're using it one way and some others. We allow that to be a choice on them for moving. And so, whereas the others are what the district had chosen for giving you those snapshots that you're asking for where students are. And so K through 2 is Ames Web, and 3 through 5 has been SRI. And that's what's been utilized over the last about 3 to 4 years is what has been being utilized for reading assessments for you. And like SPI that you were talking about, just to bring clarity for that, that is strictly, that's not a test that's used and given to everyone. That's strictly for determining for entrance into an intervention program of
So SPI is used for
System 44 and Read 180. So
it's
that
not
is
given to everybody?
No, that is strictly used for them. Yes, we do have those results for SMI, as well as we're now taking baseline data this year on basic facts.
And the
So-
SRI, is it just used for entrance into Read 180, or is everybody 3 to 5 SRI?
Everybody 3 to 5 is SRI, twice a year,
So
beginning and end.
fall, spring?
Mhm.
Okay.
So the information that you put in our folders for this evening, would that give us a good snapshot for the fall to winter reading proficiencies?
That is your
So this-
snapshot from the
okay.
data that was collected from every elementary
So in fall,
school.
this is telling me that 46% of kindergartners were at grade level?
That's correct.
Okay, so now we're, in the winter, it was 62.
That's correct.
So this is all this is a good.
That's exactly what, that's your
Okay.
dashboard. It's on paper,
Appreciate
but that's
that.
your dashboard, yes.
Thank you very much.
You're
That's
welcome.
exactly.
Just for clarity, could you touch on first grade, because we talked about that today. It
Yes.
looks like a significant drop, 74% to 53%, and what created that?
Okay. Well, one of the things that the principals, and as we were talking about assessments and what assessments we wanted to give at specific grade levels with regards to Ames Webb, and looking at, and if you're talking about the high expectations and the rigor and where our students are supposed to be, we changed in the past. In first grade at winter, we did not do our CBM. We waited till the very end in spring to bring that in. This year, they chose that they felt like for rigor, and the expectation would be that we should start seeing progress with fluency and reading skills. And so that's why we went with RCBM, and so that is a change. So you moved from nonsense word fluency, which is looking at your foundational skill, to reading. And fluency and assessing fluency. So you see that change there. That's one of the reasons why you're seeing. And so as we continue to work, then obviously we're looking forward to what the results will be when we see the spring benchmark of RCBM. So I just want to clarify that the fall and the winter were not the exact same assessment, and so that's why you see the change in numbers there.
So Jennifer, what's the assessment tool that was used in kindergarten? Was it Ames?
Ames, K1 to
Ames letter sound?
letter sound to, letter name to letter sound. So,
Okay.
so their fall was a letter name, and their
So on
winter
the page
was
2,
letter
it's all
sound.
written out, Dr. Fort.
Yes.
It's where?
The second page of the.
Mhm.
Right there.
Well, but that doesn't tell me which tool was
Which
used,
test?
does it?
That's fine.
So this was letter sound at the beginning of first, and then we went to RCBM here?
No, it's nonsense word.
Nonsense word?
Phoneme segmentation. Mhm.
Okay. And then is RCBM the rest of the grades up?
Yes.
Even in
On
middle school?
In second grade is RCBM.
Okay.
Then you move to SRI starting in third grade.
And all the way up to eighth is SRI?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Jennifer, do we have benchmark scores for math?
We do, and if you would like that, I'll be glad to have that for you in February. We focused on reading for this month, and we'll be glad to compile all the data for you we're in the process of compiling that for us, but we focused on reading first because literacy has been our focus and felt like you probably wanted that. I know that's been a big pull for you, and so we wanted to get that data to you first, and then in February, we'll be glad to have the math data for you as well, for you to see.
Thank you.
Mhm,
In this
yes,
kind of
no
a
problem.
format, wouldn't that be okay in that kind of a format?
Sure, we can put it in exact same format for you,
So
absolutely.
this is a concise, easy to read.
Yeah, it's very easy to do, and you think Sarah Stevens did a fantastic job of putting that together for you, so I appreciate her work on that. Mhm.
So principals, you guys work so hard all year long. Teachers are working so hard, everybody's working hard. In the spring, you take the map and you get the map scores back. Is one of these reading assessments better correlated to map scores than you think the other is? Do you think the DRA aligns better to that? Do you think the SRI aligns better to that? Do you think
I
the
think
Ames
it's a
Webb?
really hard year to answer that question.
Well, in any given year, not this year, but just in any given year, do you feel like one of the assessments
Previous years, Ames
correlates
has the
better?
best prediction of what the Ames.
You think
what-
Ames did?
It's best
Okay.
prediction of what the state test will say. And our scores were dead on.
So you felt like Ames was a
Yeah.
good predictor?
Predictor.
Yeah.
Driving instruction, the DRA, I believe, helped
Okay.
with that one.
Just to sum up, I think you can tell, last month you heard from our East feeder schools, you have North, and then you'll see South next month. I think you can see, we, as you said, very hardworking group. Not only that, their staffs are working diligently every day. The things that I'm seeing when I'm walking through buildings, I am very excited about. They are working very, very hard. And just how proud I am of this group and the job that they're doing, the collaboration they have. This North Feeder group, they collaborate together as an administrative group on their own as a feeder school, as well as then collaboration among our elementary team as a whole. And so just, I can't say enough for the work that our principals are doing, that then translates and carries over to the hard work and dedication that our teachers are doing. So just
Thank you, guys.
felt like I needed to say that. So.
I appreciate that, impressive. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Home runs and touchdowns.
No
Fully
deflating.
inflatable.
No deflating.
Very nicely done, thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on quickly here. Performing Arts Center update. Just a quick update. We're still tracking well for March 1st completion on the Performing Arts Center at Joplin High School. Really excited about getting into that facility in the very near future. I think the spring play is already scheduled, I believe in April. April 15th, and we'll join join that with ribbon cutting as well. So excited about cutting a ribbon on the new Performing Arts Center. It's a day-by-day thing. Sometimes we'll have, like today, for example, I got a call early this morning. It said that there's some materials that goes on the ceiling that's supposed to be in now, and it's not. They're not projecting it until mid-February, which is going to delay the opening of the school, and by the end of the day, they have the problem resolved. So, it's day by day, but our folks are working hard to make that deadline. Early Childhood Center, we met with the City of Joplin today. We talked about partnerships, the $5 million grant funding for our preschool program. We're really excited about the possibilities there. We're going to go ahead and move forward with doing some site exploration at the donated property that Mercy's given to us. We'd still like to be up on top of that hill, if at all possible. One of the challenges we have, two challenges really, that we're getting clarity on. One of them is a floodplain that's been identified. So as you guys know, our experience with floodplains and federal dollars, they don't mix. And so even though there hasn't been probably a stream of water run down that floodplain in years, but it is identified as a floodplain. So we have to watch that, and we'll be up out of that, but it impacts parking and where we put things and where we can utilize our dollars. And then the other piece is water main. We're trying to locate a water main that we think might be running somewhere along that property, but we're not for sure where. So it's possible I may have to come back to the board with a different recommendation for location, just depending on how those two pieces pan out. And Mike Johnson's, it is higher than Irving. But the floodplain's down below the hill, and so it's about to drive and moving dirt. I mean, it's federal dollars, so we've been down that road a time or two before. So we're working through that. But I'll give you an update
Any
on
timeline from the city on when they might make a decision?
I think the decision's basically been made. I mean, we're moving. They've indicated that for us to go ahead and start the planning phase. You hear about this two-year clock that starts ticking at the city. Our two-year clock started ticking December 4th of this last year to expend those federal dollars. So we've got to get we got to get moving.
We gotta get moving
So we're going to be moving forward quickly with RFPs for architects and engineers, and we're going to start building again. But we're really excited about that.
And city's helping on that because of the HUD money, obviously.
Correct.
Any HUD, if it's penny.
Mhm.
So they're helping us formulate those bid specs.
Yeah,
so
and
we
they
can
feel like the
choose
way
our
we've done,
architects and
we'll
contractors.
choose it ourselves.
Okay, great.
And they said as long as we're following procurement guidelines the city has established, which aren't unlike the ones we've
Yeah,
had. We've used
exactly.
federal dollars before too, obviously. I think we're good. So we'll back up and start that process over again and get moving on that.
Yeah, we need to go full steam ahead on that. We don't want to miss out on a lot of money.
Yeah, there's an opportunity there. Now keep in mind, the $5 million from the city with a 2-year clock, we can expend that. We'll expend that money first.
Exactly.
So once we get up
We'll
out of the
spend that
ground,
first.
dirt work, site work needs to be done. I mean, that's a pot of money we'll be accessing. So we'll get through that first $5 million in good shape. But we do need to get moving. We can't afford to wait. The other piece tonight, that a couple other items that I wanted to share. Paul wanted to give the district a quick update on a financial piece, that the financial agreement that we have in place related to the short-term loan, that bridge loan that we needed to help us get funding until we got our FEMA funds in. So Paul, why don't you go ahead and start on that?
Thank you, Dr. Huff. We had that lease purchase agreement back in August. We had an RFP where we extended the banks to participate in that, and we brought the best selection with our financial advisor to the table, and the board adopted that one. Agreement began at $37 million. Since then, we've collected and paid over to the bank 18, let's see, well, we're at 18.6 million last week, so we've collected about 18 million paid over on that agreement since September 1st. So,
And is that from like insurance proceeds?
no,
FEMA
that's from
segment?
these grants, federal grants,
Okay.
FEMA,
Any dollar comes in. and
404
100%
Safe
goes
Room
back.
money. It's a different federal source, CDBG grants. Those things we've had on the books for quite a while. The payments the payments we've been making and our flow of turning those into the state and the state's review of all those documents to see that we've got our I's dotted and T's crossed. We got into a very, very good cycle in September, and that's been paying off for those kind of collections to pay that.
And 100% that's come in has gone 100%
Gone to that
towards
agreement,
that.
right. So that's why it's gone from 37 million to the last week's number of 18.6. And at the end of February, we anticipate another 11 million coming in, so it should be at 7.7 million.
That's a fast 2 years.
Excuse me?
That's a fast 2 years.
Well, yeah, they offered an agreement for 2 years. Now, this agreement is going to take care, it's taking care of 6 months of financing, which I just described. The last leg of financing, where we have an RFP out for banks to consider the last piece of financing. We're going to bring that to the board with a recommendation for the best proposal to work with at the February meeting, 24 February. And the board adopts that. We'll work toward a closing in March to take care of the last financing needs we have, which as of February 28, I mentioned that loan balance we project of 7.7 million. At that time, we still expect to collect 24 million. So to pay down that last part of that loan and to finance our about $14 million more in cash flow financing, those two numbers add up to just below that $24 million we expect to collect at that point. And that's what we're going to be bringing to you in February and March to finish this last piece of financing.
And do you mean the 8 million, Paul? When you say the last piece of financing, was that the 8 million that we were gonna borrow, but we haven't yet?
No, the 8 million was really wrapped into that first $37 million number. We have, with some work that we've done, and of course we had that discussion last summer. But we have been working with FEMA and Witt O'Brien's, our advisors, and identified that what I mentioned, that we're going to submit with our closeout documents over these three most recent building sites. We've developed some additional costs that we think were missed in the estimates worked up for us by FEMA. And in good faith, they worked those up in the first few months following the storm. And we've had our professionals out looking at their workup of costs, and we believe we have more costs to bring to the table to submit at closeout that will cover that $8 million that we were talking about last summer.
So is that the 24 million, that's what you think that you just
That's
referred
part,
to?
yeah, the $8 million I'm talking about is inside that $24 million number that we still expect to collect is that $8 million.
Okay.
So which is a good news piece to know that we feel like we're going to have federal grants coming in rather than that discussion last summer of having to borrow that over 20 years.
Okay.
That's a much better solution.
So that's the errors and omissions, the 24 million?
That's some of that 8.5 million is that portion of the 24. The other 16 million is just the normal things that have been on the books for quite some time.
Okay.
So that's a heads up. I mean, that's where we're at from last August to now, and that's what's coming in February and March, and we appreciate
Good news
looking
is
for
that
that.
we're in a better financial position
Thank
than we were 6-8 months ago, so cash flows.
Good. Good job, Paul.
And I think just a real small snippet, Dr. Huffer, you're going to mention that last week we had the discussion of the MOVE budget.
Yeah, and I was going to actually segue into that. Eric has been working hard on, there were some conversations about the fiber, what it was going to cost to hook up the fiber at the new memorial, some pretty high costs associated with that. So I'm going to let Eric take the credit for the good work he's done with that.
Well, the original number we had was 90,000 to move the fiber. The Cable One fiber, which is different from our network fiber, move our Cable One fiber from here to the new high school. And when we reached out to Empire and Cable One, they said it was gonna be about 90,000 because there was nothing in the area, to where Empire had to dig the line that came in here just for us. And they did that. And it didn't make sense to us, but that's the number I had to submit because of the time constraints we're running. But after talking with Empire and Cable One and putting forth some scenarios and everything, we got it to where we're gonna use the existing Empire fiber already running into the high school. And so,
Memorial.
no, into the high school.
Oh.
Because
The new high school.
the memorial's gonna be temporary, and so we didn't really wanna put money into, that kind of money into a memorial. You don't know if we might move, we may not move, and so, to take that uncertainty out of it, we just said the high school, and the live broadcast and everything will be broadcast over our network to the high school, which it can handle that. And so.
And then it goes out from there.
And it goes out from
The
there.
issue, Jim,
okay.
this is all new to me, we have a fiber head. We have to have one head of fiber that comes into our system, into our district in one location to make that work. And right now, it's in this building,
it's gonna
okay?
be at the high
We have to
school.
find,
Makes sense.
we have to put the head someplace else.
And how
We
much?
looked at Memorial first,
That makes sense.
and now it's gonna be, we're just hooking to the high school.
And so, after working with Empire and Cable One, we got it down to 2,000.
Woo-hoo.
It was an easy vote last week, wasn't it?
That's what I was waiting for.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so, yeah, that's a lot better, so.
Yes.
I appreciate Eric working
That's
with
what I was
Empire and
waiting
Cable
for to
One
say
and-
yes.
and both those companies working with resolution.
If we just have one, if we want to keep both active, then that doubles, so.
Good job.
Made that an easy vote last week.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
wow,
you.
good job.
You just have to go with the information at hand. Eric, wonderful, thank you.
Good thing is it briefly, I know there's some concerns around student achievement. This is a series of presentations we've had over the last a few weeks, and I read in the paper yesterday. Superintendent never likes to be on the front page of the paper twice, in the same day, and I certainly was this morning. But related to student achievement, there was two areas of particular concern that I feel like need to be addressed. Carrie, if you wouldn't mind coming up here, please. The dual credit and AP enrollment, it made it appear as though our kids aren't getting as much rigorous curriculum as were. And I just want to share this. Carrie put this together today, so it hopefully paints a different picture than what was portrayed today. Carrie, can you, if you've got the document in front of you, or do you need a copy? Could you kind of go over that with the board and explain what's happened over the last 3 years?
Yeah, Dr. Huff asked me to take a look at this today, and we had discussed this, I think it was back in the fall. We were, I think he was asking us at that time what our numbers were as far as dual credit and advanced placement enrollment. And if you look at the 3 years, there's fiscal year, or the fiscal year, school years, 2012-13, 2013-14, and 2014-15. And basically, what it is the semester course enrollment. So, for instance, if it's a dual credit class, most of those courses are, it would count as placement. Year-long course is a way of looking. So if you, but this is what came out of our system today. Our guidance department ran these numbers for us. So, and we try to always look at 3 years worth of data, at least 3 years, or 4 and 5 if we can. But these are the last 3, and then of course that would match up too with MSIP type reports. So anyway, this is the information we have.
And how are we doing on AP grades, pass rates?
We improved last year over the previous year in terms of the way MSIP has determined that. So we had a higher percentage of kids that were actually getting A's and B's compared to previous years. When you look at the percent of the total class, what's different about MSIP is what they look at is, I'll give you an example. The MSIP report on AP and dual credit is more about as many kids as possible that take the classes, and then the percentage of kids that get an A or a B is what's measured. So let's say 100% of your kids in your school take AP or dual credit classes. That's not possible, or in our case, but that, let's just say that did. Well, if only 30 or 40 or 45% of them got an A or a B, that's pretty good, okay? But let's say the rest of them failed. That's not good, right? So that's not ever the case, but basically what I'm telling you is the higher percentage that actually got an A or B, or
Credit.
do have, and that is another thing that kind of makes the numbers might look a little different. We have had in the past world history advanced placement. And we had a tremendous amount of kids taking advanced placement world history at the sophomore level. We had about 80 or 90, which is a lot. And I think because of the rigor of that course, over time, some kids have got the message that, you know, maybe I might want to wait and take that later. But world history is required at the 10th grade level, so we had a lot of kids trying that. So we don't have as many as we've had in the past. But that's
there are some
understandable because they gotta feel like they're ready.
And the Innovative Campus Grant's going to help those dual credit numbers.
Yes, exactly. And the course is coming online from Crowder. That's our goal. So, I mean, I was excited about Innovation Campus and the dual credit courses at Crowder because that's just going to help our kids have opportunities, but also help these numbers.
Carrie, when's that going to happen, the Crowder, in the fall?
No, right now we have, I believe it's welding is the only course. The thing we have to have is we have to have at least one student take the course for dual credit with the college, and then all the students in that class are considered dual credit if it's a career ed course. And I think welding, we might have 3 or 4 kids, so therefore all the kids would count towards that number in terms of MSEP. That's the way they look at that. Now, on the other side, on the core ed side, it's typically 85, 90% of the kids in the class are actually paying for, or more, are actually paying for the course through the university. So the goal for us in MSEP 5 is to offer, obviously as a big school, we should offer a lot of courses, and we do, and we're doing a better job than we have in the past. And then obviously we want to do a better job all the time of preparing kids to be able to take those courses. And that's what we've got to continue to work on.
So are there conversations with Missouri Southern to do the online, a class like Crowder is offering, or is that can only come from a 2-year college?
No, we have, right now with Missouri Southern, we have one instructor coming to campus that's actually teaching on campus.
Okay.
And we also have really predominantly our core education classes, what we call our core classes, are all from Missouri Southern, and all the career ed is from pretty much from Crowder.
Okay.
Who's the, not who, but what course is the one that someone from Southern is coming to Joplin High School?
Dual credit psychology.
Psychology.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's been a good course.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I've heard.
Carrie, can you give me just real quick, I'm gonna put you on the spot, graduation rate this year? You always love when I do this to you.
Yeah. We, Mr. Cravens knows and Dr. Huff knows that 3 times a year we take a temperature of where we're at. We usually try to get all the kids enrolled in September and give us a few weeks, and we try to look at the credits. We look at the kids that are in our alternative programs. We sit down with the counselors and we go kid by kid and we say, you know, what's our best guess for kids finishing on time? So we get a number in September. And so that gives us a little bit of an idea what we're looking at. And then we do it again after transcripts or grades are transcripted in January, which we just did. And we're looking on the 4-year on-time graduation rate. Just my best estimate as we sit here today would probably be somewhere between 84 and 86.5%. Now, I know you say, well, maybe that's about as good as Doug Hetty does. I don't know the snow, but that's the best I can do right now with the numbers, because you know things change in kids' lives, and kids getting into an alternative program or kids going to night school. And we just sent out letters, or we're sending out letters this week and next week. Actually, they'll start next week to kids that are behind on credit in the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. But also, Mr. Boyd has spent a lot of time with counselors and the Hope counselors too, working with kids, all the kids, especially the kids that are, you know, kind of on the bubble. So that's a constant focus all the time. So that's a 4-year graduation rate on time estimate.
And then
And I hope it's at the high end.
Last
But-
question I have for you, ACT scores, concerns about that?
Yeah, there's nobody more concerned about that than us. We have seen a decline over the last 3 years. I think one of the reasons, I believe, is the fact that for whatever reason, we did not get the enrollment to offer the Academics Plus class, which we would have anywhere from usually 60 to 90 kids a year in the class taking that course. We're going to rename that ACT Prep. And for everybody listening out there, I hope that the sophomore and junior parents listen real close and get their kid to sign up for that class, because we want them in there. In fact, we'll send an email out to the parents to remind them. We want that class full. We want as many sections offered as possible with a math and an English teacher. Mr. Cravens and I and Ms. Stevens, we talked to a rep here just recently that came in to offer us some books for that class as far as for purchase, and we're going to purchase those at the end of the school year for that class, if not sooner. And so we'll get ready. Right now, this year, what we're doing is we're pulling kids out like we did last year, and we're pulling them out and giving them an ACT practice test, okay, about 2 to 3 weeks before the exam. And then we're going back with them on the kids' time. If they have an open hour, like a free period or a class, an elective class, they might be able to get out of to spend 1, 2, 3, or 4 class periods with the teacher and go over some of the things they've missed or where they need help. Also, kids that are teacher assistants or office aides, we can always spare them to go work on their ACT prep with those teachers. So we looked at how many kids had seniors had a period free or a TA or an office aide, and then we targeted those kids first, and we're trying to get them in so that they can get a little extra prep before that actual exam and do their very best.
And Carrie, you said those are the ones that will take the practice test? The ones that you can find the time within the schedule?
Well, what we actually did, Debbie, is everybody that signed up to take the exam,
Okay.
they are coming in and taking the practice test.
Okay.
But if a kid that actually is taking the exam does not have a free time in their schedule, we also have before and after school ACT prep for those kids. So if a lot of our seniors have a free period, okay, or a period that's not, high rigor, let's put it that way. If it's an office aide or a teacher assistant, they're not in there studying calculus. So they could break away from that class pretty easy to go get that prep.
Do you know, I know that all juniors in the state are going to take the ACT. State's going to pay for that. And then we've got just all the other students taking the ACT. Do you know how ACT is going to report that out? Will they report, here are the results for the juniors? Or will they just combine that with all other ACT test takers and say our overall average is?
Good question.
Do you know that?
I don't know, but I suspect that we'll get a junior class average
I would
for
assume so.
MSIP reports and a participation. We're hearing a participation rate, 90% of your kids participated and we asked that question at the state meeting I was at last week, and we have another gentleman's coming down tomorrow to the Southwest Center to talk to us about it a little bit, secondary principals. I don't know how the state's going to look at the participation rate, but right now it's got to be 95%, right? When it comes to EOCs and MAP. If it's not, well then you're not going to get any points. So I think right now they're just kind of waiting to see what the participation rate is. But I can tell you we're doing everything we can to get all of our juniors in there, unless they're a MAP A student, obviously.
But a year from now, we could potentially have 2 ACT numbers.
Yes, we could.
And what junior number, and then just everybody else that took it.
Right, and one of the things we need to know too on the ACT number, even though it went down, and we're not happy about that, it is 0.3 of a point higher if you look at the kid's best score of the class of 2014. The score that you've seen, I think it was 20.6, I believe, was the average score of last year's senior class for all the kids who took the exam, but that was their last score. Their last attempt, some kids take the AC 2, 3, 4 times, isn't always their best attempt. So when we went and looked at their best attempt, it was really closer to almost 21. Now, once again, we want that up closer to 22, 21 and a half or 22 at least. But that's our goal, and so that's where we're at, trying to improve this.
Carrie,
But that's of the senior class only. But yes, Jim, I think you're going to see a senior class for MSIP reporting, and then you're also going to see a junior class number as part of that. But but the numbers really come back at the end of their senior year. The one good thing is all the kids will have taken, well, let's put it this way, a better percentage of kids will have taken at least one of those college and career readiness exams.
When are all the juniors taking the ACT? Which test date will that be on? Is it a national test date or is it?
It's a state test date, it's April 28th.
The makeup is May something.
Yeah, May 12th or 15th. I think it's, 12th or 15th. Yeah. And so we've got big plans that day. We got to make that the best testing environment possible. We're talking about just shutting off the third floor, feeding the students when they're done. Sophomores go out to Missouri Southern for career readiness. We're excited about that. And freshmen and seniors have a different set of activities.
Debbie, I think what's important for the board to understand is this year is a huge transition year that we've been prepping for several years now. And when you look at MAP results, I think what the principals articulated, I think, is very reflective of where we've been going as a district. And with the ACT results, we've been saying, we're going to say it again tonight, we should say it multiple times in the coming months, that we expect ACT scores to drop as a direct result of all kids being tested. And the question is, from a district standpoint, what are we going to measure as a success criterion for ACT scores? And we've been kicking around at our table about, okay, when we do that 6-month check, do we check and see which kids are actually in college, and then extract and look at their ACT scores and use that as our annual report in terms of how our kids are actually going to college and how they're scoring on their ACT as a measure of success on the ACT. And I don't know if you have any thoughts, Carrie. We haven't even had a chance to sit down and talk about it, but how do you measure growth when all kids are taking the ACT? Many of them have no desire. Right. They want to go straight in the workforce and aren't highly motivated to take a test that has zero relevance to them. Maybe they want to come back to that, but when you're 17 years old,
you may just want to consider and look at the junior score, but continue to look at the senior score, because that's going to remain the same. And you'd like to have it at or above state average, that kind of thing. So I mean, that's an option. You can't say until.
Right, yeah.
So all juniors across the state will take it. So how do we compare?
Right. At least we'll have that to compare with.
Carrie, when did you say the ACT prep class is going to start? In the fall or in the?
In the fall, prep. We really want sophomore and junior, especially junior parents, to talk to their students.
So current sophomores and juniors, or current freshmen and sophomores
and juniors.
Sophomores and juniors, okay.
Because what we'd like to do is have as many seniors next year taking that class first semester. Absolutely. Because they're getting ready for, as you know, juniors would like to enroll them mostly in the spring. Right. Because a lot of them will be taking their first ACT or their second ACT in the spring.
And just one last point, we'll wrap up and move on. But all right, I'm ready.
Can I clarify one thing?
$1,000.
That agreement for that end?
It ends May 31st.
On June 1st, what does the next rent do if we stay here?
In the mid $35,000 range.
Okay, are we moving to Memorial Middle School?
As soon as we can.
Okay.
So our guys will start.
$dollars in August. We've been paying $1 a year.
$1 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had some questions, and that was unclear.
Was that right, Paul?
October.
October.
A few months.
Yeah.
I feel like some of these, we tend, that we're putting out fires with communication. And I think a lot of that comes back to how we effectively communicate. And the communication we have as a board, the communication we have as a media, with the media. And our job should be removing barriers, not creating them. And I think in some ways, we as a board have created some barriers. I think back to this last week, for example, tonight we're talking about an evaluation. But the reality is none of that information should have gone out. There was information about the evaluation that was out there the day after the evaluation took place. And that could have only come from one of us, or us, I should say, not one, but us. And, when you look at the release of information requests, there was one made. There was one made on Friday. for information about the evaluation and how that took place. So again, I think we have to have a lot of discussions where we're coming back around to explain things effectively back to the board, because at times we're running out to the media or to whoever it is, the public, and we're not giving a clear, consistent message that we should be coming out with. Whether that's from a closed session and information's getting leaked out, or whether that's in open session. I think it's good for us to have healthy dialogue. I think back to some of the meetings we've had great, healthy dialogue. We don't always have to be on the same page. I think if we all are on the same page, there's a problem. But at the end of the day, when we come to an agreement and we cast a vote and a decision's made, we all have to support that decision. We all have to move forward with that decision. And I think in some ways, really our ineffective communication with the community and with the media has really created some issues for us. And so just this made me think of it at this point in time when we're having this discussion, because I feel like we're having to have it because we haven't communicated well. So.
Thank you. Ms. Waldo, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Mr. Kimbrough and Mr. Landis. Any questions?
As I asked Dr. Huff earlier, do you know through security systems in our middle school?
I do not know the answer to that. Eric, do you know if we have security systems in the middle school libraries currently that your folks would be
North we do.
responsible for upkeep?
I know we do it north.
I'm not really sure on that.
It seems like we did. I thought
I
we
think
went
we
through
did.
this when we
What
built
type
the
of
first round of
security
middle
systems
schools.
are we talking
Just
about?
books being
going.
checked out, leaving the library with something that.
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay.
really sure.
I'll
We
follow
can
up,
find
Randy.
out.
I
Yeah,
don't
we
know the
can-
answer
okay.
to that right off the top of
I
my
know
head.
we
Seems
do.
like we
I
did
know
that
we
on the first
do
round.
it south and north, but I can't remember at the new
See,
school.
yeah, I don't know if we do all three of them.
I'm looking back in the back of the room. Is there anybody back there that knows the answer to that?
They will next time you ask them like
Okay.
that.
Yes, we'll all know.
It's above my reading level.
Any other questions? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, thank you. Regular agenda, policy updates, that would be Ms. Smith with the help of Mr. Craven.
Mr. Craven's in a minute, and possibly Mrs. Dozier if you have any questions. But the first thing up we have is a second and final reading for policy IND, ceremonies and observances. And it has been reviewed by the policy committee, and it has been before the board for a first reading. And basically, the change in that is just updating some language as it relates to Veterans Day, and it basically says that we're going to dedicate some instructional time to the observance of Veterans Day, and not just say, hey, it's Veterans Day. So that's
We've been
really-
doing that anyways, without being told.
Right, right. And there's a change in legislative action, so that's why it's really in policy. So I asked that the board, are we going to do them separate? I think we have a 1, 2, and 3. So I asked that the board approve the second and final reading of policy IND.
As long as I have bird day off, I'll be good. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Thank you. We have our second policy on the agenda tonight as a first reading of policy CFB, which is the evaluation of principals. And if you remember earlier in the year, we brought the evaluation of teachers to the board. Basically, this is the same type of model. It incorporates the 7 essential principles from the DESE model, which we're required to do, and also we're bringing forward the standards from DESE, and we've realigned our principal evaluation and created a document and a process that looks very similar to the teacher evaluation process, only with leader standards instead of teacher standards. So that is on for first reading tonight.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Still and Mr. Landis, any questions about the evaluation of principals?
And just to clarify, that includes all principals, assistant and building principal.
Thank you. Please vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Accounts payable, Mr. Barr.
Thank you, President Sharp. The attached bill list items are for payment of materials, equipment, services, salaries, and benefit in both instructional and support areas. The administration recommends the board approve payment of bills in the amount of $15,781,011.01.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Landis and Mr. Kimbrough, any questions for Mr. Barr? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any discussion items for going forward? Maybe?
I didn't hear how the Constitution team did.
How they do last night.
We the people. Is there any
Carrie,
update? I don't.
They didn't win, but Carrie, can you give us an update on Constitution team real quick?
Oh, I talked to a couple of kids today, and Mr. Kessler yesterday, and as I talked to him, was for two of us, you may know more than I have lately. They did not really have their final score. All they know is they didn't win. They did not win the competition. I guess one of their units did extremely well, and they were recognized for that. But as far as to win the competition to go on, so. But here's what Mr. Kessler did say. He felt like we improved over our past performance. Unfortunately, the other team did too.
I can hear him.
He was very pleased with the kids.
I heard it.
And the discussion was on the Constitution team, and since Dr. Sketa didn't have a mic, for those that heard the mumbling, we were talking about Constitution team. They did improve from last year, and we're waiting on how they did at the last competition. So I want to, again, thank our principals that did an awesome job of presenting to us, and those teachers that work with those principals. You could see from the 4 that were here this week and the ones that were here last month that we're trying to reach, like Mr. Engel said, reaching every student every day. And they had a common theme of the self-regulation. They're tailoring their instruction towards each student. And there was just a lot of commonalities between all the principals. And it sounds like to me that the teachers are getting the same message throughout our district, which is very nice, since we have students that transfer from building to building. So I just want to, again, give kudos to our teachers and our building administrators and the leadership team for helping keeping that message consistent going forward. Thank you so very much. And do we need a closed session?
We do. We have one item.
Okay. I need a motion for closed session, please.
Second.
Mr. Landis and Mr. Kimbrough, please vote.
Yes.
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 Thank you. I appreciate you all coming to the Joplin Schools Board of Education meeting this evening. Always watch Jet 14. Visit the joplinschools.org website. Thank you for the baskets from the schools and the children for Board Appreciation Day.
Gosh.